Story 1. Let me tell you about the most frustrating experience I have ever had with a doctor's office. Last year, I needed to see a specialist. This was not your typical doctor's office. No, they were special. They did not do in-person appointments unless it was for a treatment or procedure. Everything else was done over the phone. Okay, I thought, that is different, but I can work with that. My first phone consultation was in July 2023. It went fine, nothing extraordinary. A few months later, I got the bill and paid it promptly. No issues there. I even have the proof. It is right there on my bank statement and in their payment portal history. Little did I know this would become crucial evidence later on. In December 2023, I had another phone consultation. Again, it was unremarkable. But then spring rolled around, and that is when things started to get weird. I received a bill for the December call, which was expected. What was not expected was that they also billed me for the July call, the one I had already paid for months ago. 2 co-pays for the price of one, I guess. Not on my watch. Now, you would think this would be an easy fix, right? Just call the office and sort it out. Well, that is where you would be wrong. This doctor's office does not believe in answering phones or having a voicemail. Nope, they have a phone number all right, but all you get is a recording telling you to contact them by text. It is like they are allergic to actually talking to patients. So I did what they asked. I texted them, and texted them, and texted them some more. Nothing. Radio silence. It was like shouting into a void. I have been trying to reach them since April, and I might as well have been trying to contact aliens for all the response I got. Frustrated, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I called the third-party billing company listed on my bill. The conversation went something like this. Hi, I am calling about a billing issue with Dr. X's office. I have been double billed for a co-pay I already paid. Billing company, I see. Can you give me more details? Sure. I paid a co-pay for a July appointment, but now they are billing me for it again along with a December appointment. Billing company, let me check our records. Yes, I can confirm you paid the July co-pay. We can email the doctor's office about this. Great, so you can fix it. Billing company, well, we can inform them, but that is about all we can do. So, you are telling me you can see I have paid, but you cannot actually correct the bill. Billing company, that is correct. The doctor's office has to make that change. The same doctor's office that does not answer calls or respond to texts. Billing company, yes. Well, that was helpful. But I was not giving up. I decided to call my insurance company, even though I was not a customer anymore. To their credit, they really tried to help. Insurance representative, I understand your frustration. Let me see what I can do. Thank you. I appreciate any help. Insurance representative, I have tried to contact the doctor's office, but the email address we have for them is bouncing back. Of course it is. Why am I not surprised? Insurance representative, I am sorry, but without being able to reach them, there is not much more we can do. I understand. Thanks for trying. So here I am, still getting monthly bills for 2 phone calls, one of which I have already paid for. I am texting them every week, leaving a trail of evidence that would make Hansel and Gretel proud. But instead of breadcrumbs, I am dropping desperate pleas for anyone, to acknowledge my existence and fix this mess. Now, you might be thinking, why do not you just pay it online or mail a check? Oh, sweet summer child, if only it were that simple. Their online payment portal has been broken ever since they started double billing me. It is like it is having a sympathy malfunction in solidarity with their communication systems. As for mailing a check, with how disorganized and unprofessional they have been, I have about as much faith in them properly processing a mailed check as I do in winning the lottery without buying a ticket. It is not happening. At this point, you might suggest, well, why do not you just go there in person? Oh, believe me, I have thought about it. But their website and previous texts warn that patients are not allowed on site without approval. And if the Yelp and Google reviews are to be believed, and at this point, I have no reason to doubt them. Showing up uninvited is likely to end with me being yelled at and threatened with the police. Because nothing says healthcare like treating patients like criminals, right? The kicker in all of this, I only ended up with this joke of a doctor's office because of my health maintenance organization insurance. They picked it for me. Thanks for that, really. It has been a blast. So here I am, 7 months into this saga, no closer to resolving it than I was on day one. I am starting to think I am stuck in some kind of healthcare twilight zone. All I wanted was to pay my bill and move on with my life. Instead, I have got a monthly reminder of their incompetence in my mailbox and a growing collection of unanswered text on my phone. But you know what? I am not going down without a fight. I decided it was time to get creative. If they wanted to play hardball, I could play too. I did some digging and found out that the state medical board takes complaints about billing practices pretty seriously. So, I compiled all my evidence: the paid bill, the double billing, the screenshots of unanswered texts, everything, and submitted a formal complaint. But I did not stop there. I also reached out to a local consumer affairs reporter at our city's newspaper. I figured if the doctor's office wanted to ignore me, maybe they would pay attention to some negative publicity. The reporter was intrigued by my story and decided to investigate. A week later, the newspaper ran a front-page article titled "Local Doctor's Office: The Black Hole of Medical Billing." It detailed my experience and included statements from other patients who had similar issues. The article went viral on social media, and suddenly, the doctor's office could not ignore the problem anymore. The day after the article was published, I finally got a response. My phone buzzed with a text. "Doctor's office, we apologize for the inconvenience. We have reviewed your account and corrected the billing error. You will receive an updated statement shortly." Me, thank you. Can you explain why it took a newspaper article for you to address this? Doctor's office, we are currently reviewing our communication processes to ensure this does not happen again. Me, I hope so. Will you be refunding the late fees I have accrued due to your error? Doctor's office, yes, all late fees will be waived. It was not much, but it was something. A few days later, I received an updated bill showing only the December copay, along with a letter of apology from the office manager. But the story does not end there. The state medical board took my complaints seriously and launched an investigation into the practice. They found numerous violations of patient communication and billing practices. The doctor's office was fined and put on probation, required to implement new systems for patient communication and billing. As for me, I paid my correct bill and vowed never to use their services again. Story 2. I worked at a hardware store 4 years ago. The store sold tools at low prices. Next door to the hardware store was a Big Lots store. I wore a navy blue shirt with the company name on the back, while the Big Lots employees wore black shirts. My managers liked me because I was able to keep my composure well, despite being on the autism spectrum. The story involves myself, an old lady, Karen, my manager Bill, the Big Lots manager, and a Big Lots employee named Nikki. During my time working at the hardware store, I was given 2 breaks, a 10-minute break and a lunch break. I used my 10-minute break to go to the Big Lots store next door and buy a $1 pork-flavored noodle bowl. Occasionally, I would also buy household items for my family while I was there. Due to my frequent visits to the Big Lots store, I became friends with many of the employees there. I would visit the store on both of my breaks, and sometimes even after work because of this friendship. While I was buying my $1 pork-flavored noodle bowl at Big Lots during my break, an elderly woman in a wheelchair, accompanied by her husband who was wearing a World War II veteran hat, asked for my help. She said, "Excuse me, young man, can you help us grab some blankets?" I noticed that they were having difficulty reaching the blankets that were on a high shelf, so I agreed to help them. I walked over to the shelf, grabbed the blankets, and handed them to the couple. The woman thanked me and asked if the store had a certain type of bed in the back. I explained to her that I didn't work at Big Lots, but I was a frequent visitor because I worked next door at a hardware store. I also mentioned that sometimes I would wear my name tag and would be mistaken as a Big Lots employee, and people would ask me for help, which I would provide if I could. I had given this explanation many times before in similar situations, but I always try to be helpful and friendly to the customers. While I was helping the elderly couple, a woman we'll call Karen walked over and asked if I worked at Big Lots. I explained that I didn't work at the store, but was just helping out the couple. Karen: "Excuse me, do you work here?" Me: "No ma'am, I was just helping out these customers." Karen: "Nonsense, you have a name tag on. Employees are only allowed to have name tags on." Me: "My manager never told me that I wasn't allowed to wear my name tag in this store, and my manager never told me to take it off during my 10-minute break. I work next door. I was just grabbing my lunch." Karen: "I don't care if you're on your lunch. You work here when a customer says so. Also, who the heck would help some old bums if they didn't have to, especially if they're clearly illegals?" This comment set me off, as I felt it was disrespectful towards the elderly couple and racist towards my stepdad, who is half Mexican. I was raised to respect my elders, and I had experience taking care of dying family members in their 90s with my mom when no one else would. I turned towards the elderly couple, and the old lady started tearing up. Despite my effort to keep my composure, I lost my temper and spoke out against Karen's comment. I yelled at her, "You stuck-up, entitled person. I don't work here, and even if I did, what you just said is utterly disgusting." That man fought in World War II, and given his blank expression, I'm guessing he can't hear. Clearly, his wife is in a wheelchair. I wasn't expecting this racist nonsense while trying to do some shopping. If I worked here, I wouldn't serve you and would escort you out of the building myself. At that point, I noticed that my manager Bill was calling me over the radio, and that Nikki, a Big Lots employee, was peeking over the corner. Karen looked at me and said, "I want to speak to your manager right now." I called Bill over and, with a grin, gave Nikki a look because we knew each other for a year, and she knew what I was planning ahead of time. I picked up the radio and said, "Manager to aisle 10 of Big Lots. I have a rather rowdy customer acting up and causing a scene." Nikki was watching the door for Bill to walk through before calling the Big Lots manager. Bill asked, "What's going on here?" Karen replied, "Your employee cursed me out. I want him fired." Bill looked at me and asked, "Mason, what happened?" I replied, "She came to me from behind after seeing me help out this lovely young lady and her husband grab some blankets from the top shelf. I tried explaining to her that I didn't work here, but she insulted these two individuals for being both old and Hispanic and saying that whatever she wanted was more important. I lost my cool for a moment, and I did raise my voice and state some strong words. Bill looked at Karen and said, "I don't care what my employees do when they're punched out and not in the store they work at. However, I don't think I'll be letting you into our store anytime soon." Karen asked, "What are you saying?" Bill replied, "He doesn't work here." The Big Lots manager joined the conversation. Big Lots manager: "Hey Mason." Me: "Hey there." Big Lots manager: "Nikki said a lady was harassing you." Me: "Yup, that's her right there." Meanwhile, Karen was confused by what was happening. Big Lots manager: "What's going on?" Me: "This lady insulted an elderly couple for being old and Hispanic, and I lost my cool. Nikki saw the whole thing." Karen turned to the Big Lots manager and said, "Fire him. You're clearly the manager." The Big Lots manager looked at the elderly couple who were crying and asked, "Is what this young man said true?" The elderly woman responded, "That racist woman said we're illegals, and that kind boy put her in her place." The Big Lots manager then said, "Well, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to allow someone who harasses our customers because of biases they may have to shop here. I'm sorry, but you can't buy anything from the store." Karen said, "Whatever, you jerk. I just came in here to buy some nails. I don't care if I'm banned. I'll just go next door and buy them. They probably have better price stuff than here." Bill smiled and said, "Lady, I just banned you from shopping next door." Karen was shocked and replied, "Only the manager can do that." Bill replied, "Read the name tag," pointing to his name tag that had the company name and his position on it. Karen then stormed off, knocking over a sunglasses display. Bill said, "You can clock back in, and I'll give you an extra 20 minutes of break today. It's a good thing that that silly person doesn't know that you don't clock out for breaks. Next time, give me a little bit more warning before I confront one of her kind." After the incident, I went out for drinks with the Big Lots manager, Nikki, and Bill. We all laughed about how Karen had managed to get herself banned from 2 stores in the span of 2 minutes. Story 3. I was 18 when this happened. I had just bought my first car about a week earlier and was excited to drive it over to my girlfriend's house. As I was cruising down the road in front of a row of terraced houses, suddenly a door flew open and a kid darted out. I didn't know if the kid was going to stop or run into the road, so I slammed on my brakes and came to a dead stop. The kid turned and continued along the pavement, apparently not heading into the road after all. In my sudden stop, I really didn't think about what was behind me. Next thing I knew, I heard a loud crash and my car jerked forward. I had been rear-ended. It wasn't too serious, both cars were still drivable, just some bent bumpers. I got out of my car to check the damage and exchange information with the other driver. That's when I saw her, a woman in her late 30s, storming out of her car, looking absolutely furious. "Woman, you could have killed me and my kid. What were you thinking, stopping like that in the middle of the road?" Me, "I'm sorry, but a child ran out, and I had to stop. Are you okay? Let's exchange information for insurance purposes." Woman, "Insurance? You better pay for this damage yourself, and for my emotional distress. If you don't, I'll call my husband, and he'll come here and screw you up." I was taken aback by her aggressive behavior. Being only 18 and having had my car for just a week, I didn't know how to handle this situation. I tried to stay calm and stick to the formalities. Me, "Ma'am, we need to exchange information. Threatening me isn't going to help. If you continue, I'll have to call the police." Woman, "Police? You're the one who attempted to murder me and my kid." I was confused because I couldn't see any kid in her car. While she continued her rant, I decided to call the police. I dialed the emergency number and spoke to the dispatcher, explaining the situation. The woman kept yelling in the background, but I tried to focus on the call. After a few minutes, a police car arrived at the scene. As soon as the officers stepped out, the woman's demeanor changed completely. She ran up to them, tears streaming down her face. "Woman, officers, thank goodness you're here. This young man bullied me and caused me to crash into him. I'm just a poor mother, and he's been threatening me." The officers looked puzzled and approached us both. They started taking our statements separately. I explained what had happened, the child running out, my emergency stop, and the rear-end collision. I also mentioned the woman's aggressive behavior and threats. While one officer was talking to me, I overheard the conversation between the other officer and the woman. They had run her car details, and it turned out her car didn't have a valid MOT mandatory safety test certificate. This revelation set her off again. "Woman, that's impossible. Your system must be wrong. I demand to speak to your sergeant right now." The officers remained calm and professional, explaining that driving without a valid MOT was a serious offense. They then asked both of us to take a breathalyzer test. I complied immediately, showing a reading of 0.7. The woman, however, became even more agitated. "Woman, how dare you accuse me of drink driving? Your machine is faulty. I won't do this test." Officer, "Ma'am, refusing to provide a sample is an offense. We need you to cooperate." Woman, "This is ridiculous. I'm not doing anything wrong." The situation escalated quickly. The woman refused to take the breathalyzer test and started yelling at the officers. They warned her several times, but she wouldn't calm down. Finally, they had no choice but to arrest her for failing to provide a sample. Woman, "You can't do this to me. I know my rights." As they tried to handcuff her, she began to struggle, leading to an additional charge of resisting arrest. It took both officers to get her into the police van, all while she was shouting and threatening to sue everyone involved. After they managed to secure her in the van, one of the officers returned to me. "Officer, I'm sorry you had to witness that. We've arranged for her car to be towed since she won't be able to move it herself. Here are her details for your insurance claim. We'll keep your information on file, but we won't be sharing it with her directly." I thanked the officer and headed home, still in shock from the whole ordeal. A few days later, I started feeling sore from the impact and decided to get checked out. I filed a claim with the woman's insurance company, including both the car damage and my medical expenses. A few weeks later, I received a summons to appear in court as a witness. I was nervous, but I knew I had to go. In court, I recounted the events of that day. The woman still seemed angry, but was much quieter in the presence of the judge. To my surprise, she was found guilty on all charges. The judge sentenced her to a 1-year driving ban and a £500 fine for failing to provide a sample and resisting arrest. Her insurance company ended up paying for all my damages and medical expenses. As I left the courthouse, I couldn't help but shake my head at the absurdity of it all. If she had just calmly exchanged information with me at the scene, none of this would have happened. Instead, her refusal to cooperate led to her arrest, a driving ban, a hefty fine, and she still had to provide her details for the insurance claim in the end. Story 4. I work as a vendor for long-term care facilities, which means I spend a lot of time visiting different nursing homes and hospitals. This particular day, I was at one of the facilities I service regularly, making my rounds and checking in with the nurses on different floors. After finishing up my check-ins, I headed back to the elevators. Now, I should mention that the elevators in this building are notoriously slow. It's a running joke among the staff, and even some of the more frequent visitors know about it. I pressed the down button and waited patiently. While I was standing there, one of the nurses I know came up to chat with me. Not wanting to block the elevator, I stepped a bit to the side so we could talk without getting in anyone's way. "Nurse, hey there, how's your day going?" Me. "Pretty good, just finished up my rounds. How about you?" We chatted for a couple of minutes, catching up on some work-related stuff. As we were talking, I noticed a woman walk up to the elevators. She looked like she might be visiting one of the residents. I didn't pay much attention to her at first, focused on my conversation with the nurse. Then I heard the distinctive ding of the elevator arriving. I excused myself from the nurse and walked back to the elevator doors. I double-checked the indicator to make sure it was going down, then stepped inside and pressed the lobby button. Being courteous, as I always try to be, I turned to the woman who had been waiting and asked her which floor she needed. Me. "What floor do you need?" Woman. "Actually, I'm going up, and I was here before you." Her tone caught me off guard. It was unnecessarily hostile, and what she said wasn't even true. I had been there first, waiting for the elevator before stepping aside to chat with a nurse. But I decided not to argue about that point. Me. "Oh, well, this elevator is going down." I thought that would be the end of it. She'd realize her mistake and wait for the next elevator going up. But boy, was I wrong. Woman. "How dare you? You're hijacking my elevator and making me wait longer. I'm a guest here, and you're just a nurse. I was here before you, and you cut in front of me." I was taken aback by her outburst. First of all, I'm not even a nurse, I'm a vendor. Secondly, that's not how elevators work at all. Me. "Ma'am, that's not how elevators work. This one is going down. If you need to go up, you'll have to wait for the next one." Woman. "Don't you dare tell me how elevators work. I've been using elevators longer than you've been alive, you disrespectful young person." At this point, the elevator stopped on the first floor. A couple of people got in, looking a bit confused at the tense atmosphere. Me. "Folks, just to let you know, this elevator is going down to the lobby." The new passengers nodded, apparently fine with going down. The woman, however, was not done with her tirade. "Woman, see, these people are getting on. I'm getting on too, and you can't stop me." I shrugged, not wanting to argue anymore. The elevator continued its descent, finally reaching the lobby. I stepped out quickly, glad to be leaving the situation behind. As I was walking away, I heard more people getting on the elevator. Then, just as the doors were closing, I heard the woman's voice again, now sounding panicked and angry. "Woman, wait, where are we going? Why are we going down further? I need to go up." I couldn't help but laugh as I heard her complaining to the new passengers as the doors shut. The elevator was heading down to the basement, and she was along for the ride. I chuckled to myself, thinking about how simple it would have been for her to just wait for the next elevator going up. Instead, she had created this whole dramatic scene and ended up further from her destination than when she started. As I was leaving the building, I ran into one of the receptionists I know well. "Receptionist. Hey, you look amused. What's got you smiling?" Me. "Oh, you wouldn't believe what just happened in the elevator." I recounted the whole story to her, and we both had a good laugh about it. Receptionist. "Oh my, we do get some characters in here sometimes, don't we? But that takes the cake." Me. "Tell me about it. I just don't understand why some people have to make everything so difficult." Receptionist. "Well, at least you handled it well. Some people would have lost their temper with her." Me. "What good would that do? Besides, karma took care of it in the end. She's probably still trying to figure out how to get back up from the basement." We shared another laugh, and I headed out to my next appointment, still shaking my head at the absurdity of the situation. Over the next few weeks, as I continued my regular visits to the facility, I kept an eye out for the elevator woman, half expecting to run into her again. But I never saw her. Part of me wondered if she was still wandering the basement, refusing to admit she'd made a mistake and stubbornly insisting that the elevator should go up just because she wanted it to. The incident became a bit of a running joke among the staff I regularly interacted with at the facility. Whenever the elevators were particularly slow, someone would invariably quip, "Maybe that woman is still in there, demanding it go up." It also served as a reminder to me about the importance of patience and understanding, especially in a healthcare setting. We never know what kind of day someone is having or what burdens they're carrying. That woman might have been visiting a very ill relative or dealing with some other stressful situation. While it doesn't excuse her behavior, it helps to keep things in perspective. Still, I couldn't help but smile every time I used those elevators after that day. It was a small, silly incident in the grand scheme of things, but it was one of those moments that stick with you. A perfect example of how a little patience and common sense can go a long way, and how the lack of those things can turn a simple elevator ride into an unnecessarily complicated ordeal. In my line of work, I encounter all sorts of people: patients, healthcare workers, visitors, and administrators. Most of them are kind, understanding, and patient, especially given the often stressful nature of long-term care facilities. But every once in a while, you meet someone like the elevator woman who seems determined to make life difficult for themselves and everyone around them. I've often wondered what happened to her after that day. Did she eventually figure out how to use the elevator correctly? Did she complain to the facility management about their faulty elevators? Or did she just huff and puff her way up the stairs, convinced that she was right and the entire elevator system was wrong? Whatever the case, I hope she eventually got to where she needed to go. And who knows? Maybe the experience taught her a little something about how elevators work, or at least about the benefits of listening to others instead of making assumptions. But somehow, I doubt it. As for me, well, I'll keep on visiting my facilities, riding those slow elevators, and doing my best to help out where I can. And if I ever encounter another elevator hijacker, well, I'll just smile, step aside, and let them learn the hard way, just like our friend in this story did. Story 5. I've been working at a popular visitor attraction in London for several years now. Our job usually involves being out on the floor, answering questions, and helping visitors. We had a separate team that worked in the control room, typically supervisors or those aspiring to become supervisors. They rarely, if ever, set foot on the floor if they could avoid it. The control room team was responsible for monitoring CCTV cameras and managing our breaks and lunches. For example, if a visitor triggered an alarm, they'd call us to investigate. It was a cushy job, and those in the control room were quite content with their position. One day, management decided to shake things up. They announced that supervisors would be pulled out onto the floor, and floor personnel would be trained to work in the control room. On paper, it seemed like a good idea, but in practice, well, that's where things got interesting. As you can imagine, the supervisors weren't thrilled about being sent to the floor, and most of us on the floor weren't keen on moving to the control room. Some of us, myself included, had experience in the control room from covering breaks and lunches, but it wasn't our preferred post. The first training week was chaotic. They had one experienced control room operator training 3 or 4 floor staff at a time. This left us short-staffed on the floor, forcing management to cover the gaps. I overheard one manager say, "How hard could it be? It's only a week, then I can go back to my cushy desk job." On the first day of training, I found myself in charge of training 3 floor staff, while management and supervisors covered the floor. Management had instructed me to treat them like normal floor staff. I shared a knowing smile with my trainees, fully aware of what was about to unfold. Not even 10 minutes into our shift, the radio crackled to life. "Floor staff, can one of you bring the keys for the front door so we can let the public in?" Now, it's important to note that it's a 5-minute walk from the control room to the front door. Following procedure, I radioed one of the managers on the floor. "Me, come to control and pick up the keys to take to the front door." Instead of complying, I received a phone call from the manager. "Manager, just have someone bring them over. There are 4 of you in there." Me, "I'm sorry, but as per procedure, nobody is allowed to leave the control room." Grudgingly, the manager made the 5-minute trek to the control room, collected the keys, and then walked another 5 minutes to the front door. Consequently, we opened late that day. The chaos was just beginning. Another radio call came through. "Floor staff, which key is it?" Me, "It's number Roman 20. They managed to open the doors, but then the alarm went off. "Floor staff, control, why did the alarm go off?" Me, "You need to call control to let us know exactly when to take the alarm off. It's procedure." All of these steps were clearly written down in our procedure manual, but it seemed our managers had forgotten the finer details of floor operations. As soon as the public was let in, alarms started going off for various reasons. Visitors have a knack for going through doors marked "Door is alarmed." It's normal stuff for us, but a nightmare for the unprepared. I started making radio calls to management on the floor. Me, "Charlie 3, go to door X." Me, "Charlie 3, go to door X." Me, "Delta 4, relieve Charlie 3 for their lunch." When lunchtime rolled around, I received several phone calls from staff who hadn't been relieved for their lunch on time. It became apparent that management hadn't considered that travel time between post and the break area isn't included in the lunch break. If you have an hour lunch and it takes you 10 minutes to walk to the break room, you effectively only get a 40-minute lunch. The regular control room staff knew this and would start lunches early to give everyone as close to a full lunch as possible. But our managers were learning this the hard way. The radio calls kept coming. Me, "Charlie 3, can you check the toilet? There's a report of water on the floor." Me, "Charlie 3, can you go to X? A visitor wants to use a voucher." Me, "Actually, Charlie 3, go to door X." Charlie 3, "But I'm with a visitor." Me, "Doors take priority, Charlie 3. For the rest of the day, we ran management ragged. We adhered to every single procedure in the book. We had them counting empty spaces in the car park, checking locks on emergency gates, inspecting both men's and women's toilets for toilet paper refills, looking for burnt-out lights, and meticulously filling in their task books. The next day, I wasn't assigned to the control room. It didn't matter though, the tone had been set. Everyone who followed my lead continued to run management into the ground by strictly following every procedure. To management's credit, they did make some changes after that week. They allowed us to wear black sneakers, opened more break rooms closer to our posts, and loosened up some of the more rigid procedures. They also decided to keep the control room staff in the control room and the floor staff on the floor. While everyone is now trained for control room duties, we only have to work there if we want to. Looking back, it was a glorious week of malicious compliance. We didn't do anything wrong. We simply followed the rules to the letter, showing management exactly why things were set up the way they were in the first place. The experience taught us all valuable lessons. The floor staff gained a new appreciation for the work done in the control room, and management learned firsthand the challenges we face daily. It also highlighted the importance of clear communication and the need for some flexibility in procedures. Since then, there's been a noticeable improvement in the relationship between floor staff, control room operators, and management. We all understand each other's roles better, and there's more mutual respect. The incident has become something of a legend among the staff. Whenever a new policy is introduced, someone inevitably jokes, "Remember the great control room swap?" It serves as a reminder that sometimes you need to walk a mile in someone else's shoes to truly understand their job. As for me, I still prefer being out on the floor, interacting with visitors and solving problems on the spot. But I have a newfound respect for our control room staff and the vital role they play in keeping our attraction running smoothly.